This week on the Walk On podcast.
I think some of the research has identified that about 75% of people are in a reactive frame of mind. Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of intention to go to creative leadership, which is really where you get transformation in a business. We've got so many external pressures with AI, with climate, business requirements that require transformation. But to truly be able to be successful in transformation, you need to lead from a creative mindset.
Well, I've been staring for hours, thinking about exactly what... Welcome to the Walk On Podcast Season 2. This is our last episode of the season, and it's a great one. We've covered a lot of topics, and I think this will be an interesting personal reflection, but I think we're also going to talk about some really timely topics of sustainability and energy transition, workplace dynamics with gender, empowerment. And so a lot of good stuff. For those of you that are new to the Walk On podcast, this is a chance to explore people living fulfilling, passion-filled lives that they are leading at work and leading in home, leading with purpose. And it started out of my journey to try and find my purpose at this point in my life and my career. And so you've heard some of that journey. Our guest today, Cheryl D'Cruz Young, is actually one of the people I've met through my new pursuit of passion, which is coaching. And we are colleagues at the Brown University Coaching ACT program. Cheryl is Senior Client Partner of Sustainability at Korn Ferry, and just a really intuitive, kind person who's just on top of her game professionally and a great classmate and colleague. So I thought it would be wonderful to have you on to round out this season, Cheryl. And if you want to introduce yourself to the folks.
And Michael, I really appreciate it. As you know, my family are firm Liverpool supporters. So we love the Walk On. And, you know, I'm a fan of your podcast as well. So I'm really privileged to be here with you. I'm so delighted to spend some time as we go through this. So listen, I have the great fortune to work at Korn Ferry. As you mentioned, I'm a senior client partner here based out of New York. I do global work. And I wanted to share with you, our whole approach is really around one clear purpose, and that's to be more than. So we have a very simple and straightforward kind of mantra in our business, and it permeates each one of us in our work, but then also we bring our full self to work. So I'm really, really delighted to be at Korn Ferry. As we go through this discussion today, it's the culmination of all my experience. And then my other descriptors are, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I am a daughter. I am this year a grand aunt.
Wow, congratulations.
It's so exciting. So my goddaughter, my sister, my elder sister, I'm the youngest of 5, and there's 14 years between myself and my elder sister. She's my godmother, right? And then I'm her daughter's godmother. And now this little one has come along and is just, it's melting all of our hearts. She's just the most gorgeous little one. She was born on Saturday. Cora Crosby, and she is a delight.
Cora Ruby. I love it. Well, her first podcast shout out. How about that?
There you go. And I have to shout out to my 2 sons. So I have 2 sons, Jamie and Aaron, and I'm a proud mom of them, as well as they'll laugh, but our 3 doggies as well. So, yep.
I appreciate it. I'm a proud dad of my dog Riesling, so I get it. Well, thanks for that overview. And it's actually, I look forward to diving into Be More Than. I think that's a really powerful statement. But let's start with your career arc and how you got to Korn Ferry.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, we've talked about things in our coaching work. I'm the whole person, so I'll just give you like a few minutes on how I identify. So I was born in Kenya. I was 2 months old when my family moved to London. There was a lot going on in the 1970s, and we were displaced. We did have, Indian heritage, but British citizenship. So we all moved to London, Greater London, and I was just 2 months old. So that's all I knew. But as I mentioned, my elder sister's 14 years older than me, and I've 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and I hear these wonderful stories of them in the Gorgora crater or going on safari. And honestly, Michael, my view was rain. You know Liverpool, right? So just further down of London, not so different.
Right.
It was rainy, it was cold, it was wet, it was all I knew. But then I'd have these
Yeah.
stories, right? So I thought, oh, there's a
Yeah.
world outside. And,
Sure.
London is phenomenal. The UK is amazing. I probably took it for granted growing up, the diversity
Sure.
and the opportunity there. But I just really wanted to go out into the world and had the opportunity to go up to London, to Scotland for university. So I studied financial economics and then found my way. So the first half of my career was in industry, procurement and
Mm-hmm.
supply chain, worked for some great consumer companies, and then came over to the US 22 years ago. So it was just after 9/11. Came over,
Mm-hmm.
transferred with Cadbury Schweppes at the time, and worked
Mm-hmm.
on business integration and absolutely loved it. So it was the first time with that background that I actually felt like home. New York
Interesting.
felt like home. Everyone was from, and
Yeah.
you're a New Yorker. I know that,
Yeah, of course.
right?
Yeah.
Everyone was from everywhere. So
Yeah.
we lived all over New York City, Upper West Side, Midtown, Hell's Kitchen, and then latterly Soho. So had, a great fortune to get to know different neighborhoods, and then moved into organizational consulting.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really family. I
Yeah.
had my second child, didn't really see my first, and knew that I wanted more than just knowing consumer. And I actually moved
Yeah.
into executive search.
Okay. Yeah, and that's thank you for sharing that amazing journey, and there are so many threads we're going to pull on there, so we'll come back to many of them. But the operations side and working for some of your original companies, that wasn't your initial vision for work, was it? That's not what you were thinking your future entailed.
That's true. Right. So when I graduated in the UK, there's a milk round. So it's all the graduates go through a process and you get picked up. So you go through an interview process. So I had this interview process. It was actually in Liverpool. And then they said, where do you want to work? So I think I'd shared with you, my mom is a single mom. My dad passed away when I was 10 years old. And I thought, okay, I'll go back to London. And they were like, fine, you'll just need to meet the manager there and then you'll start in London. So I went, 22 years old for that meeting. And it was interesting, Michael, because one of the questions was, what does your dad do? And it was kind of odd, right?
Yeah.
At that age and stage, I didn't have the confidence to say, no, I'm interviewing for this job,
Yeah.
or I've been
Yeah.
offered this job and I'm meeting you to get started in London.
Yeah.
But as I look back, I didn't fit his profile.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I was crestfallen because for the longest time, right,
Yeah.
I wanted to go into investment banking. And that was
Yeah.
it. Tunnel vision. And then I was crestfallen. And then, I know that you're a music fan. And there's
Yeah.
those fantastic lyrics of, you don't always get what you want, but you get what you need, right? Mick Jagger.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you, sir. And the Rolling Stones.
Right. And as I look back, it was the best thing because,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't fit his profile, but in actual fact, it wasn't really probably going to be the right thing for me. I fell into
Right.
procurement and supply chain initially in the UK, and then I had a great opportunity with Coca-Cola and moved to Paris with them. And it was the most amazing experience. It was internal, external. It pulled on my demand and supply kind of economics background. And it was new territory. So in the 90s, it was pretty new and really fantastic. So I had this great opportunity. My husband and I moved to Paris. I had my first son there, which it was also the year of the World Cup. And it was just fantastic. We had
I mean, fantastic, right?
it was the best time. And so we were there for a few years. My husband did an MBA. So it's also a dual career, right? We're managing
Yeah.
a dual career family. So went over, he got a job back in London. And so I moved back and then had the great fortune to come over with Cadbury Schweppes. So I was doing a lot of global work. But what that did, Michael, was as I continued in my career, it really led to a passion of helping women helping women.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of work within the Institute of Supply Management forums, women in leadership kind of forums, which I still continue to do today, mostly now women in energy. And it is really around having the discussion, sharing stories, enabling people, enabling women. I just want to get to parity. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. Cheryl, how does, clearly it impacted you in a way that you've turned that into an amazing career and, an amazing passion for driving parity and equality. If you can frame those two, what did that feel like and do as a 22-year-old versus how you perceive that conversation now?
Yeah, I think the more so it led to empowerment later on
Mhm.
because I could look
Yeah.
back at things that I did in my career and then literally help
Mhm.
others, like help young women, give
Yes.
them the confidence through the work that I've done. I love that question because at the time I felt I was not in a powerful position. There was a
Yeah.
different power play for sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then women in the finance sector have helped other women. Those who
Mhm.
have achieved positions of responsibility and leadership have then looked to evolve structures. And that's really
Mhm.
informed my work today. So I'm a coach on our inclusive leader framework here at Korn Ferry. And that
Mhm.
has been transformational for my own journey, as well as I can see the unlock. And I know that you can as you're coaching your
Yeah. Yeah.
clients.
Yeah.
Often there are things that have been suppressed or built or covered over that just don't enable us to really live our full selves. And if you
Yeah.
are able to break down those barriers, you can do it for yourself, but then also for others.
Yeah.
And then you're leading through passion and you're really working in a way that is service led. It's an
Mm.
enabler and it is empowering. So I think that's a
Yeah.
great question. So today I build from it. There was one experience. It's not dissimilar to many others and many other women where we were first in the 1990s, right? Fast
Mhm.
forward to now, we may not be a first, but there are still, as there are across the board, right? Women face them, but I know everybody faces them, right? Where you have
Mhm.
a disparate power play.
Mhm.
So, how do you support and make the changes in the structure to
Yeah.
enable people, to really empower people?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so well said. And what I'm really coming to find for myself, I think, and I'd be curious your perspective, and you know this a little bit from our first days of class, but I sort of went into leadership, executive leadership and performance coaching as, Elon Musk is going to, not really, but Elon Musk is going to call me and say, how do I fix this stock price or my perception in the community? How do I engage? Right. And I was thinking of these business books and business cases and didn't want to hear about touchy feely therapy-esque pieces of coaching. What I've come to realize, and I had this conversation yesterday with some classmates, we are coaching people who work within human structures, right? And so that's what we're doing is to drive change, we have to focus on ourselves and the people we encounter, whether it's people on our teams or up the ladder. And so I'm curious if you, A, find that to be true, and B, in your work, how some of the sort of systemic structural things bump up against that goal of empowering people to have difficult conversations, to see themselves in different roles, whether that's candidly in the position of power where they're not doing it the right way versus trying to get into that position of power to shape the team.
So, first of all, I'd say I hope Elon Musk does call you because he needs some support desperately, Michael. And I think
Yeah.
you would provide a really nice balanced view that he's absolutely in need of. And then,
Elon, if you're listening, it's
right? And then I would say you're absolutely right. I also do work around accelerating leaders. And so often the work and the coaching is really on that basis. But what's underpinning
Mhm.
it is emotion, it is baggage, it is kind of things that they've encountered that are blocking their way going forward. And to be honest, it wasn't until, going through the Brown program that I feel genuinely equipped to have those conversations. And I think that's
Yeah.
vital. We all know that coaching as a discipline has really blossomed, and that's fantastic. But I think it's vital that coaches have the correct training and support
Yeah.
and the frameworks and the structures, to your point, to
Yeah.
enable people to really help them. So that said, there is this work that we're doing, as you know, right, at Brown, that help us navigate our clients through a journey. And it's critical to spend time in the different areas of that journey to help them, where they need to, either shift to a new perspective, going from dissonance to resonance, or support their position to really accelerate. So they're in a great place and they want to take it to the next level. Well, then there are tools and ways to do that. But it's critical that coaches are trained and really enabled to do that. It's very, very important.
Yeah, for the civilians on here who aren't coaches, can you share a little bit more your perspective on dissonance and resonance and what that means?
Yeah, I love it. So I think some of the research has identified that about 75% of people are in a reactive frame of mind. And it takes a lot of intention to go to creative leadership, which is really where you get transformation in a business. So the kind of work that you and I do with clients in corporations, they want to transform. There's a constant need. We've got so many external pressures with AI, with climate, with so many different just business requirements that require transformation. But to truly be able to be successful in transformation, you need to lead from a creative mindset. And what we can do is support leaders in a whole new time frame, right? 2024, really from the pandemic, the world has changed, no question.
Yes.
And change is accelerating. With AI, it's only going to get faster. And so the way that we did things before will not get us to how we can operate really effectively going forward. So that's like, sometimes if people are in a reactive frame of mind, they're not actually operating at their best. They're going to be fearful. They're going to be resistant to change. And it's only until you work together to unblock that you can then elevate towards a more creative mindset. And I think what you can generalize a little bit is typically leadership can be determined as more creative, right? The leaders who are in charge and they're charting the way in organizations tend to be of a more creative mindset. That is that is a generalization. I'm aware I'm making it, but it's generally the point. The next levels of organization have had to perform, right? They've got KPIs, they've got needs to do, they've been operating a certain way. So actually in Korn Ferry, we talk about the enterprise leadership mindset. And it's a requirement for leaders and everyone in the organization to simultaneously perform and transform. But for that, you've got to be in a creative mindset. So we focus a lot on mindsets in our work, and it really unblocks, and I've seen it.
I want to spend some more time about Korn Ferry, and I love the to be more than, but I want to go back to 22-year-old Cheryl. How does that business world look? And maybe finance is an outlier and there's been some improvement, but it's not. In your perspective, in your experience, where are we compared to the 1990s to today in terms of being a truly more inclusive, more open, more creative business culture?
I would say we have made tremendous progress. I think so. And I am an optimist, but I see it. I think now what we have are 5 generations in the workplace. And we have a really impatient Gen Z and Gen Y. And in some ways, I'm all for that, right? I think absolutely, right? We should be. And they're not as forgiving. Look, I'm Gen X. They're not as forgiving as Gen X, who have had to work with these other generations, and we've pulled it forward. But now we're in between with the conduit for both. And we want their impatience because we want to drive the change. But then there's just a reality to it. So I would say I'm really positive, but then look, here's some stats. So we do a lot of work with the Fortune companies. 10% of the Fortune 500 are led by women. 6% of the S&P 500 are led by women. It's moved forward, it's moved back. Sometimes it's moved forward.
Yeah.
The trajectory is good, but I want to get to parity. Imagine what the
Yeah.
world would be like if 50% of the Fortune 500 were led by women, if 50% of the S&P 500 were led by women, and the different impact that would have. So I think we're on the right trajectory. We're going to get there. Is it fast enough? No.
Yeah.
Should we ever think it's fast enough? No. But I'm also about the power of all. And I don't want to disenfranchise the majority group, which is the white male group right now. I'm so proud to say my husband is a white male. We've been together 29 years. And I am all for empowering everybody. I have 2 sons of mixed race. I'm all for empowering everybody. And so we need to bring everyone up. So yes, I want parity with gender, but I want to bring everybody up, and I want to empower everybody. And I think we can. I'm all about abundance and prosperity.
I'm thinking of you and quite jealous being in New York City this week as we wrap up the US Open, not to date the podcast when people down the road listen to it. But, we've got parity now, right? The men and women are taking home the same purse, right? It's doable. It's feasible. But I'm curious your take. One of the things that I really struggle with, and not to get into the political climate or, sort of where we are, but in the work we do and just the facts, it feels like one of the drags, we've made this, as you talked about going forward and back, one of the drags is this reactive mindset of the pie is finite. And so if you're giving a seat at the table to someone else, you're removing me from that table, or my share of the pie gets smaller. And I think that is an understandable reaction. Look, I'm a 50-year-old white man that, 10 years ago, if I applied for jobs, I'd get interviews 75% of the time if I was qualified. Now I get 2%, right? It's just, and I understand it and I get those dynamics, but I think you do have this sense of the world is changing. I can't keep up. I don't understand it. I'm being left behind. I'm having taken away from. And I think that is a reactive mindset that is natural in some degree, but it is a big drag on progress. And I'm curious if you agree or not, and what you think we can do to kind of overcome that.
I think it is a scarcity mindset. And I think you coined it really well. It is because people are in that reactive state. So I think we all have to help. And I don't want to get political as well. I think, but that's also informative at this current point in time. So that also leads to optimism in terms of progress and where we are. And I think both sides would probably say that theirs is not the scarcity mindset, right? I think genuinely they would both say it. But how do we together drive change and together achieve? I would go to some fundamentals. And they are, we need everybody in the workplace because we have a declining birth rate globally. And it's the first time in the US that we're reaching some pretty important demographic changes. So we need everybody. I would say if we just take it to North America, from a competitive perspective, it's vital that we need everybody in the working age to support the growth and the competitiveness of the USA. And if we look back, and this was why, my husband and I, he's an entrepreneur. He has thrived and flourished here. And the reason is because of the entrepreneurial mindset that we've always had in the USA. And the immigrant flow that have then supported the changes. So I think, again, it's an optimist view, but I do think if we intentionally work on policies that don't disenfranchise certain groups, really listen. So part of our coaching is to listen at the level 3, right? Politicians have to do that. We mustn't disenfranchise any group. We've got to listen because everybody's needs are really important, equally important. But we are operating in a multicultural society more than ever. And so the structure needs to evolve. And then how we go about things, again, I don't want to get political, but there are more jobs available. How do we retrain? How do we reskill? How do we think forward on that? Because we need collective brain power.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
dignity
It
in
is.
work.
Absolutely. And, I keep coming back to, so I'm the most optimistic realist you're ever going to meet, right? Like I hope for the best and I prepare for the worst, right? So, that's the way I approach life. Maybe it's because I grew up in upstate New York and you hope that it's not going to snow, but you bring your boots. But, it comes back to people for me, right? Yes, we need the structures, we need the frameworks that set us all up for success, but we need to meet people where they are. And so those people who are in a reactive mindset, not turn your nose up, not saying you're wrong, you're outdated, you're outmoded, your thinking's wrong, but really engaging in a conversation about opportunity. And then training leaders who are equipped to listen, as you said, to come from that perspective of openness. I think that's how you do it. Build the structures and build the people to move us forward.
Yeah. And I
Well,
think we've got a collective will to do that. And
yeah.
we're here. We're fortunate to be U.S. citizens. We've been here.
Yes.
We became citizens, and it's just, I think there's nowhere else, no other country that has the will to move forward that the USA has, and that's demonstrated in our delivery, right, in our results in
Yeah.
comparative in
I'm
competition.
hearing lyrics from Hamilton in the background as you
Yes.
as you talk about that. The greatest place. Anyway, that was New York City they're talking about. But anyway, so all right. Well, I mean, I don't want to short shrift that conversation because I think it's really powerful. But I think it leads to the work you're doing now in energy transition at Korn Ferry. So why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so part of that enterprise leader framework we are bringing into the energy transition. So, and we talked about the scarcity mindset, right? There's just factual environmental climate concerns, and there's a penalty if we don't achieve our climate commitments, our global climate commitments. But we're up against short-term profits and short-term thinking that has been as part of the structure, as part of the way stock exchanges work, as part of the way capital is raised. But we do believe, and we have been somewhat successful about this, in the ability to support organizations to simultaneously perform and transform, to have a focus on we can do both. And actually, you're seeing organizations thrive where they have been able to do both. So, we think about it in terms of, you commit, you're going to commit to make the change and the impact and make that impact kind of core and center. It's purpose driven. It includes sort of elements of profitable and sustainable growth. And then to perform, you've got to support your management. You've got to support your leaders and train them in the mindsets that, yes, we can do this. And then how do we do this? And then you're making profitability transcend, right? So you're making that transformational, truly sustainable. So you talk about sustainable value in the business. So here, what we kind of term this as is for the impact. So we talk about leading for impact. So if you're leading for impact, you can have profitable and sustainable growth. And there are organizations, I can give you some examples, very public, those who commit, like an Ørsted, or organizations in other renewable energy companies like E.ON and NG, a lot from EMEA, actually, a lot from Europe, are driving this change. And they've been leading it. If we think about those companies who have been able to perform, you think about IKEA, right? They changed their business model. Some car companies have changed their business model to become electric. Microsoft very much perform. And then that whole transform kind of methodology is around, yes, changing business models. So we believe you can deliver profitable growth and climate benefit and have sustainable value. But we're in a period of time where it has become political.
Yes.
There's been retrenchment, and that's very real. And there will be a cost of that if we don't continue with the agenda.
Yes. I'll give you just a real tangible example from my life. And it was a horrifying moment, but it actually played out well. So I used to lead public affairs across Southeast for Walmart when they launched their green transformation. And they are one of the most sustainable companies in the world. And they have one of the largest supply chains. So that's quite a feat. But I took this CNN reporter down an aisle and I was pointing out all the concentrated laundry detergent in a store. And we looked at all the fresh fruit packaged in plastic that was made from corn and water. And he was, we're having a great conversation. And I turn around and they're not there. And they're filming a bunker that's full of like cheap, plastic beach toys. Right. And he said, well, you've talked a good game and you've got all these good products. But then you have this, and it is that transformation, it is that performance. Yes, we are changing our business model while also understanding our customer wants cheap toys to go to the beach, right? We're going to get there, but to perform, and transform, we've still got to meet those expectations of Wall Street. We've still got to keep our customers coming in, and we're going to bring them along the way. And fast forward, I challenge you to go to any grocery store and find laundry detergent that is not concentrated. Walmart did that. They said, we're going to do it. You have to do it within a year or we're not selling you. And they all did it. So it is that challenge. And there was pushback. There was, why are you becoming the sustainable company? And they serve more rural communities where politically, right, we can get at all the demographics. And they've just been a true leader in it. So I've lived it and I get it. And I think that is the challenge. How do you stick to a vision that you've set and take some of the bumps while you're transitioning? But it is doable.
And Walmart is a great example because what a transformation they've undertaken.
Yep.
And they are a leader and they are a market maker. So it's absolutely critical. And we're so grateful that they've taken a stance. They've come up with Project Gigaton, where they've got really a direct impact with their supply base. And I would go back to it, and I'm sure it's the case. We should test it out. But those toys now that you'll probably find will be from recycled materials. And they'll
more so, yes.
They'll ensure in how they're supporting their team members, that everybody thinks about sustainability in everything that they do. And then it permeates everything. So this is an important point in time, but I can tell you, Michael, we're still seeing clients really focused on their commitments, really committed to deliver. And they're seeing that end goal. And they know that their customers, their supply base, and their consumers are also committed. And it's important that they stay the course.
Yeah. I could do this all day long, and I want to be respectful of your time. I know you have an event coming up at New York City Climate Week. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you. So we're thrilled. So we've always been supporters. And yes, it will be around leading for impact. I lead two things for Korn Ferry. We're sponsors of Zero Week, and that's all around the energy transition. And then Climate Week in New York's vital. But I'll tell you, Zero Week have been a little bit forward thinking, right? We've had the policy now and we've got the investment to drive energy transition. And they're now introducing talent to support that transformation. Climate Week, we're introducing and pushing the people agenda. Because you cannot deliver against these commitments if you don't support the people in that transformation. So we're very excited to have a panel. We'll have some wonderful leaders in sustainability, as well as our own Korn Ferry practitioners kind of leading the charge. So yes, a shameless plug. It's on September the 24th in our New York office at 200 Park Avenue. We're delighted to be part of the solution, Michael, in driving the transformation and change. So thanks.
I love it. And your passion is just, as you talk about these topics, I mean, it's just infectious. And these are, for a lot of people, these are dense, obtuse conversations that they don't, feel impact their life most days. And I think you've made it really accessible and impactful. And so let's close here if we can. What advice do you have for others that are, pursuing passion, whether it's work or in their personal life? What advice do you have for them?
I say go for it. You know yourself. So I really understand what's going to drive you. What do you want to spend your working day achieving, and take it really seriously. I'll end with my I have been fortunate at Korn Ferry to align purpose and passion every single day. And it does help some days, right? I don't know, it's superhuman. It
Yes.
really helps some days. But I'll tell you, my overriding North Star here is when I started this work in sustainability at my current firm. So I had a long basis of it in the work that I did in terms of commodities that I purchased that led to my journey in sustainability. But as I was working on our Sustainability Center of Excellence, I shared it with my then 14-year-old son. And I'm like, this is the work I'm doing. And I was so pleased. We were back in the Paris Accord. And Michael, he just looked at me, deadpan, and said, Mom, 2050 is too late.
Wow.
Right? 2050 is too late.
Yeah.
So that's what gets me up every day to accelerate, and we can't let up. And yes, there'll be bumps along the way. Nothing's linear, but we have to stay the course. And yeah, that's for his generation, right?
I love it. What a perfect way to end this, thinking about from the mouth of babes and keeping us on our toes and keeping us to our promises and making us be better selves. I think as parents and grown-ups in this world, we should all look to that inspiration. So, well, Cheryl, I appreciate you being on. This has been a true pleasure. We could do this all day long, but this is the Walk On podcast, people leading with passion and purpose, providing a roadmap for your personal journey. Hear their stories, find your passion, walk on. Cheryl, thanks again.
Thanks, Michael. Bye-bye.
I was hanging